Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. I'm back, and I've been given word that you guys have missed me, which I really appreciate, but there were lots of comments on my fellow colleagues' videos asking, what did you do to Yulia? Well, no one did anything to Yulia. Yulia took her first vacation in a year and a half, and I will tell you it was much needed. But I do really appreciate your worries, and I do really appreciate you reaching out and, of course, missing me. Anyways, I'm back, and I'm back for a while. I'm not planning any trips anytime soon, so you will be seeing me enough for you to get annoyed with me and get tired of me again. Today we're going to be talking about what is it that makes Trump so icky about Zelenskyy. And, of course, we're going to discuss it in the comments down below, so you don't have to suffer alone, and I don't have to suffer alone. So, of course, please leave your questions, suggestions, constructive criticism, anything you have on your mind, or well wishes for my comeback. And yeah, I read all of it. I appreciate all of it. Let's go. So if you might have seen, there was this quote from Donald Trump earlier where he was basically saying that he's really disappointed and really upset about Putin sending all of these missiles and drones onto Ukraine, specifically onto Kyiv, and killing so many people needlessly. And at the end of that quote, he also remembered Zelenskyy. But let's break it down, starting with the fact that he was complaining about Putin. He said Putin was a really good guy, and, you know, they've always had an understanding, and Trump had this really good relationship with him, and he doesn't understand how he has gone mad because he's just doing all of these crazy things. So here is what bugs Trump. It's not the lives lost. It's not necessarily the fact that Putin is shooting at Ukraine, because he's done that before, and Trump didn't really care. It's the fact that Trump thought that Putin has enough respect for him to not do that while they're talking. Because if you watch Trump's interviews, he has said multiple times that we're in the middle of these conversations and he's still doing that. So he's actually flabbergasted, and it's kind of embarrassing and humiliating to him. It's like a slap in the face. Because in fact, Putin doesn't care about Trump. He doesn't care about these conversations. Trump hasn't shown him an upper hand. Trump keeps threatening sanctions every other day. If Russia doesn't stop doing what it's doing, Russia continuously doesn't only not stop doing what it's doing, but it increases the intensity of these attacks pretty much every day. And what does it get in return? It does not get missiles to Ukraine. It does not get support for Ukraine. It does not get any more weapons for Ukraine. It doesn't get harsher sanctions. It gets Trump's rants, truthfully, on Truth Social, and him screaming and throwing temper tantrums about how he's disappointed in Putin and how he doesn't understand what happened to him. I mean, no one in the world is really surprised about why Putin is doing what he's doing, and he didn't just recently go mad. It's just that Trump didn't expect Putin to literally, absolutely not give a single bleep about Trump and their conversations. He doesn't have enough respect for him, and that's what bugs Donald. And to further prove my point in that, here is what Russia has started doing recently. I mean, we all know that Ukraine has been under barrages of attacks for many, many days, and well, for 3.5 years to be exact. But they have gone worse and worse and worse. And recently, and not even recently, but since Trump has entered the negotiation, actually, they have gotten worse. And this most recent one was particularly probably one of the worst I have seen in my life in Kyiv in the past year and a half. So there was an attack Friday to Saturday night, which was horrendous. Kyiv was in flames. There were so many comparison pictures online between London in World War II and it being up in flames in all different locations and Kyiv that weekend. So what prompted Putin to send all of these missiles and drones onto Kyiv? I mean, really nothing, just the fact that he's a bloodthirsty monster, but also the fact that it's Kyiv's birthday. It was Kyiv's birthday last weekend. And of course, to celebrate that birthday, Putin had to set it on fire. So Friday to Saturday night, there were barrages of drones, there were barrages of ballistic missiles, and barrages of cruise missiles. I, fortunately, wasn't here for that because I was just returning from my trip. I did, however, get here Saturday to Sunday night at 2 in the morning. Right during the epicenter of the worst hell unleashed on Kyiv. So here's how it went. I was actually driving from Krakow to Kyiv, and I switched the car I was in to my car in Lviv, where my parents live, and at about 2 p.m., I got to a block post. A blogpost is basically a military checkpoint right at the entrance to Kyiv, where they check your documents and they make sure that everything tracks. And sometimes there are soldiers at the blogpost during broad daylight, but mostly at this point in the war, they're only there during the night. It was 2 a.m., it's 2 hours past curfew, I'm not supposed to be out. So most people actually can't get into Kyiv at that time, and they will be forced to find a place to stay till 5 a.m. until the curfew is lifted. You do have to have a reasonable reason as to why you're traveling at this hour, which I did. I crossed the border, and that is actually a valid reason because I'm just trying to get home. So after they checked my documents, checked my story, checked where I lived, and checked that I did actually have a border crossing stamp, they did let me go. At that point, that was about 2:30, and I entered my underground garage in my building and saw literally, I would say, almost every person in my building in the garage. So I instantly realized that there is a massive attack. Why did I not know about the air raid? Because, well, when it was sounding, I wasn't in Kyiv yet, and my phone was dead. So there's that. And I get to the garage, I see that the entire building is there, so I understand something is happening. I asked one of my neighbors and I was like, hey, are you guys by chance hiding from Shaheds or? And they said, we're hiding from everything. It's everything. So I got really worried. I ran upstairs to get my dogs because I live on the 15th floor. As you can imagine, that's kind of scary. And I have floor-to-ceiling windows. And during these night attacks, that is just a surround sound IMAX experience that no one wants. So I ran upstairs to get my dogs. As I opened the door to my apartment, I saw a Shahed drone literally flying towards me. And then, thankfully, it flew past my building, but it did land somewhere in the neighborhood, and that somewhere is the viral video that most of you have probably seen of the boys running into the parking lot and a Shahed drone exploding right behind them. So that is the Shahed that was flying over my apartment complex. So that was not fun. I grabbed my dogs. I honestly was physically exhausted, so I just physically could not pick them up and go down to the shelter, so we spent the night in the bathroom. And while that was going on, I kept hearing ballistic missiles being taken down. I kept hearing impact. I also kept hearing drones. It was honestly one of the scariest nights of my life. And I found out that that was the night where I think a record number at that point of missiles and drones was shot onto Kyiv. And then the next night, which was Sunday to Monday, at that point, I don't think anyone in Kyiv actually cared for the hell that was breaking loose outside of their windows and outside of their apartments, because we were so exhausted on 3 nights of no sleep that we actually didn't pay attention to air raids. And thankfully, those were mostly Shahed drones. But not just some Shahed drones, it was the record number of Shahed drones ever launched on Kyiv. And the air defense was going off, like, I don't even know. I don't think I had a 1-minute window where I did not hear gunfire. So those were our past 3 nights in Kyiv, and that's how Putin sees peace negotiations. And that's how he sees peace, which, as I've said before many, many times, he doesn't want peace, he wants surrender. To him, peace is surrender. If Ukraine surrendered and didn't fight, then, you know, none of this would have happened. And that brings me to the second part of Trump's Truth Social rant statement, which is him being so upset that Putin is not taking him seriously and not abiding by their agreements and, you know, doing all of that I just described to Kyiv while these talks are going on. He, of course, decided to mention Zelenskyy and how Zelenskyy running his mouth and talking too much is really not helping. And, you know, I thought to myself, every single time that it's obviously Putin's fault and Trump kind of like half calls him out, he has to bring Zelenskyy into it and blame him more. And I was like, why is that? And you know what? I realized why is that. Because Zelenskyy is the only leader in the world that actually talks back to him. Zelenskyy puts him in his place. And Zelenskyy does not suck up to him. Zelenskyy does not try to kiss his feet. Zelenskyy does not try to act like what Trump is saying or is doing is okay and normal just to sort of mend the relationship. Zelenskyy is the only person that really does push back publicly, and it humiliates Trump. And that's why he really doesn't like it. Think about the Oval Office spat. Zelenskyy wasn't taking it. At a point at which it was just too much disinformation and too much and just getting ridiculous, he talked back, while most of the other world leaders just sit there and kind of play diplomacy, right? Because they're just like, oh, well, whatever. I mean, like, this has been happening and it's going to continue happening, so we're just going to listen to it and smile, right? Like, smile and wave like Madagascar penguins. Zelenskyy doesn't do that. And every single time that he's asked a question about Trump or Vance or anyone from Trump's cabinet, he doesn't say things, he doesn't say vague things to sort of, to hide what they're doing is not okay, and that, you know, they're blatantly favoring Russia and they're actually fucking up the process of negotiations. He says it very diplomatically, but he does say the truth. And he's also known to be the person who does say the truth and the person who's grounded. Here's what Trump hates about Zelenskyy so much and why he can't let it go, is because Zelenskyy is what Trump wants to be, in a sense that, you know, these people that voted for Trump, they voted for this big leader who is in with the people, who, you know, who is in with the working class, who says what he thinks, who doesn't care about political jargon. And I mean, Trump is not that. He doesn't say real things like they are and doesn't care about political jargon. He's just blabbering and he just says stuff and makes it up, while Zelenskyy actually says things the way that they are. And Zelenskyy is a person who is not from politics, who was an entertainer, who had a very successful entertaining business, who came into politics and now is leading a country during war for 3 years now, while he was given 3 days. And Trump is this person who doesn't come from politics, who's an entertainer, who's like an everyday's man. Meanwhile, he's a Nepo baby millionaire. And actually, he does kind of come from politics, provided that he had to be in those circles and he had to rub shoulders with billionaires and millionaires his entire life and with politicians in order to be able to pull off the scams and schemes that he has been doing with real estate and whatever else it is that his failed businesses were. So in reality, everything that Trump is trying to describe himself to be to appeal to his electorate, Zelenskyy actually is. And it takes Trump so much effort to try and be that, because in reality, everything that he does and all of his decisions and all of his policies signal otherwise, while Zelenskyy actually is that. And that's why he just can't stop commenting on Zelenskyy. To sum up, we are 3.5 months, I want to say, into the negotiations with Russia, and Trump, the best deal maker, has only made it worse so far. Ukraine continues standing and will continue standing. Russia has intensified its attacks. Ukraine has finally started developing and unveiling its own long-range missiles, and as we've heard yesterday, there have been limitations lifted off of Ukraine on the longevity and distance of long-range strikes that Western weapons can be used for. And word on the street is that we are probably finally going to get Taurus missiles from Germany. So all in all, even though all hell is breaking loose and it's really hard, and obviously all of us are underslept, slow, and tired, we're gonna persevere. The same way as Kyiv has always persevered. You know, since it was Kyiv's birthday this weekend, I will say this. Kyiv has been ruined and rebuilt, and currently it is being ruined. But every single time it comes out of it stronger, because what doesn't kill you, you know the rest. And I think that we as Ukrainians really do relate to that, because that's just our national mentality. So we're gonna keep being here, and we're going to keep persevering. For Trump, however, if he doesn't help Ukraine, that really is going to stick with him, and it's already sticking with him, and his political appearance already is crumbling. So let's see what's next, but something tells me that one of his cornerstones that are going to bring him to his demise are his absolute incompetence in dealing with the situation in Ukraine. That's all I have for you for today, but wait a second, I do have a question for you. We are planning on renaming the news brief, because it's not so much news anymore, but it is a brief and it is geopolitical analysis, and it is kind of, it's an opinion section. It's a geopolitical analysis opinion section, and we have been thinking about names that we could rename it to. So if you have something that's catchy and short and sweet and good for the algorithm that pops into your head, please leave it in the comments below, because I would really love some help. And of course, you know what to do next. Like the video, send it to a friend, family member, anyone who would be interested. Leave a comment with questions, suggestions, or answering my question. And of course, subscribe to this channel and turn on all of your notifications so you don't miss when the next episode comes out in about 2 days. See ya!